Same thing, they're all the same.
There's your two stripes.
I know, that's what I'm saying. What are you doing? What are you waiting for now?
Oh.
Damien?
Did you do it?
Yeah.
Oh, what a life. It's great if you're on weekend. I should have about 2 or 3 shots of whiskey.
On tape.
And I'll talk back, huh?
This is on tape, Grandma.
Good telling Candace. So he wants 2 or 3 shots of whiskey.
It's being taped now.
Grandpa, this thing is on.
This is on.
What's that?
It's on. It's on.
Oh boy, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Oh my God.
But don't worry, they're gonna.
Oh, I don't care what they do.
It's like, whoa, that's good.
What are they going to show this in school, I guess?
Yeah.
Wow.
Petrone, and he's in the Navy.
Kenneth Petrone.
When did you first enter the military?
June of 1942.
I gotta stop.
He's looking. That's what I said. What the hell are you going to do?
You can just start it later. It doesn't matter where you start. Whenever you're ready to start, start. You don't have to read, because it takes 6 hours. I mean,
Take 2, click.
take 2. Go ahead, whenever you're ready.
Zach, how do I know when that's recording? I looked over here. The light was
Alright.
on.
Yeah, I turned it off. I was laughing too hard.
I'm just going to keep this running.
Don't look at Zach or Joe.
I know.
Alright, 1, 2, 3.
This is my grandfather, Candlelaw Petrone. When did you first enter the military?
In June of 1942.
What branch of service were you in?
Navy, U.S. Navy.
And were you drafted or did you volunteer?
They called me to draft first because I was supporting my mother. My father died in, well, my father died and I was supporting my mother. I was working down the U.S. Naval Base in Philadelphia. And I had to support her, so I didn't go in right away in the first draft. I had to wait about a year, and then they called me again. And I said I'd go in, and I volunteered. Well, I volunteered to go in. I mean, they asked me if I would. And I went into 1942 of June of 1942. I went into the Navy. I went down to boot camp down in Maryland. And boot camp is, you know, where you get your training. That was for 7, 8 weeks, 8 weeks. Went to boot camp, and am I talking now? No. What's wrong? Because I said that. There's nothing wrong with that. And I went to boot camp, and they taught me how to clean my bunk, how to wash your clothes, drill. Most of it was drilling, you know, marching and calisthenics, you know, keep fit, physically fit. And you learned a little bit about the Navy history, you know, about the types of boats they had there, what types of ships, and things of that sort. So after that was over, I was assigned, prior to the end of my boot camp, I was assigned to a ship, and I had to pick up in New York Harbor, in the port of New York. And they said it was an LCIL. It was LCI, and then parentheses L, 510. That was the number of the ship, 510. It was the smallest ocean-going craft at that time. Okay, LCIL stood for Landing Craft Infantry. The L in parentheses was for a large group of, you know, it was a larger, they had a smaller, you know, they had the smaller landing crafts, those little ones that the barge comes down and hits on the beach, like, you know. We also had to hit the beach, though. We had a flat bottom boat. We didn't have no keel, like the boats that usually have a keel. They come to, so they could stabilize and don't get seasick and things like that stuff. So, after my boot camp, as I said, after 2 months of it, I went to New York City. We went, well, they took us there to New York City on a bus. And we went on board the ship, the LCIL 510, the number of the ship was. And the crew, there was 26 men, 26 sailors, and 4 officers on the crew. I have a picture of it here. Where is it? I guess I must have left it in the... I have a picture of the crew anyway, if you want to look at it. So what else the question? What else do you want?
What rank were you?
Rank? Well, I was just a seaman when I first went in. I was no... I was a machinist by trade. I used to work... I was a machinist down at the Navy Yard. And that's where I was working at the Navy Yard. I was a machinist. I used to work in a machine shop. Then... and I went in as a seaman first class. Usually a seaman third class, I'm sorry. And you have to work your way up. And so I was aboard the ship July or August. July. June, July. About August of 1942, I went aboard the ship. And we stayed there at the New York Harbor for a week, 2 weeks pretty near. They were waiting for good weather to cross the ocean. We had to cross the Atlantic Ocean to go over to England. We had to go to England. So, and it was going to be a big flotilla. In other words, it was going to be destroyers, big ships, large destroyers and cruisers, and then these small crafts. With our craft was the smallest going craft. So there was a big convoy. There was a lot of other ships going with, you know, was cruisers, destroyers to protect us. They were the ones that were ahead. They went first, and they flanked us sort of on the outside of us. We were like in the middle of the, you know, the ocean's pretty big, so we were more or less in the center. And there was LSTs also, landing ships tanks. There was big. They were larger than we were. They were also flat-bottom boats, and they mostly landed on the beach when the invasion, and the tanks left. You know, the armored tanks and the big machine, you know, jeeps and everything like that would go on the beach with those big. The big bow would open up. You know, the big bow. I don't know if you've ever seen it open up. Big doors and the ramp drops and the beach. My type of ship that I was on was a landing craft infantry. We carried infantry troops. We didn't carry no soldiers that going overseas, you know, making it across the ocean, but you're doing an invasion on the invasion. So we went, we left for port, and we took us about 3 weeks to get over to England. What they did is they first came down from New York. They went down to the Azores and the English islands. You know, it was warmer climate, and we went across the sea to near Spain, and then from Spain we went up to England. That's where it was, and it took us 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks to go across, because the smaller ships. And our ship was the smallest type. So it took us long, and there was 30 men on our ship, you know, 4 officers and 26 enlisted sailors. Most were all sailor boys. And out of that 30 people, 4 of us didn't get seasick. I was one that didn't get seasick. I swear to God, I didn't get seasick. Another sailor and 2 officers didn't get seasick. Captain and the engineering officer didn't get seasick. So And we landed up in England, in the town called Falmouth, England, Falmouth, Falmouth, England. And we noticed there was a lot of other ships in there, you know, there's other ships, Navy ships. And of course there was British ships there. And we stayed there till 7 or 8 months. And we got over there about August or September in England. It took us pretty close to 2 months. And they ran out of water on our ship. Our ship didn't have where they produced their own water. You know, they had water tanks filled with water. I mean, and when the tanks emptied out, that's all the water they had. Whereas the larger ships, they have boilers, and they provide heat, and they also provide they have distilling plants, a distilling plant where they make water. You know what I mean? They clean the ocean water. You know, they sensitize it and everything, and they drink from that. But we didn't have no water. We didn't have anything on the ship to do that. And the result was that after it took us over 3 weeks or maybe a month. I think somewhere around between 3 weeks and a month to get over there for us. I mean, for all, but we all had to go together. I mean, but they had to go slow because we could only go so much of a speed, so many knots. And what happened was that a week before we get into England, they ran out of water in our ship. That's the truth. They ran out of water. We didn't have no drinking water. So they started drinking cans of juices and everything like that. And it was given to you like 2 or 3 a day. That's all. You couldn't drink no more. You had to watch how much juice they had because they had to watch us. You know, everyone had to see how much water or liquid there was for drink. So a lot of, and they were trying to catch rainwater. Whenever it rained, they put out a canvas. But we didn't get too much rain going across. So we had to do with the juice, and we started open up cans to get, you know, cans of beans and cans of fruits and cans of everything that they had to stock on the ship, and to keep from getting dry, thirsty. You got to, you know, so you don't dehydrate. Well, we finally got the Falmouth thing. They filled our tanks up with water first thing. So we had water, clean water, good water. That's another thing. We couldn't even take showers after 2 weeks out there. They stopped taking showers. I mean, they couldn't do anything. You know, couldn't try to clean yourself the best you can. That's about all. And we finally got the Falmouth, England. And we stayed there, and we patrolled a little bit in between. Not too far. We were in other words, Falmouth, England was right across from France. You know what I mean? The English Channel. They call it the English Channel. That part of the water between France and England. And so we were there for 7 or 8 months, maybe more than that, just practicing what we had to do, what they told us. They were waiting for other ships too. You know, they had to get a lot of soldiers. They had to move a lot of soldiers over there. And they come over in big transports, you know, the big ships they had where they could put all those soldiers aboard there. And on these big ships, large ships that carried a lot of people. And when they found they had enough people, all we used to do is just go out in the bay a little bit, a few miles, just to keep in practice with the sea. You know, how to use the boats and the rows and everything. You know, the ropes and how to tie up. So you had to keep. Until I guess the next thing I could tell you is that we were there about 7 or 8 months, and we met a lot of girls, and we had fun. We drink. You know, we go out. Between that, you know, weekends or something like that. I think that's so close to about a month before June 6th was the invasion. we got a troop of the soldiers aboard, practice, coming aboard our ship and what they were gonna do, like what they were gonna do. And how they were gonna, take care of them and everything like that. How we had to live with this, with the soldiers. Of course, they were all armed, the soldiers, they were infantry. They were ready to get, there were soldiers that were trained to land on a beach. See, our type of a boat or a ship was a landing craft infantry. We landed infantry people. So we had to go, in other words, our boat would just go up alongside, right up on the beach, just like all the other boats, because it's a flat bottom boat. Boat's flat, it doesn't have a keel. That's why everyone got seasick with the exception of 3 of us. 2 sailors, I was one of the sailors and another sailor didn't get seasick. And no, 2 officers, it was 4 of us didn't get seasick. I'm sorry, it was 4 of us total. And there's 2 officers and 2 sailors didn't get sick. And I was one of them and another guy, didn't get, another fellow didn't get in. His name was Harry Kingland or something like that. I think if I remember right. And 2 officers, one was the captain, the other one was the engineering officer, didn't get sick. Of course it's a flat bottom boat, that's what happened, it's rocks. And let's see. Well, what else? Do you have any specific question, or you want me to keep on talking? What do you want me to do?
Well, how did you learn about the end of the war?
What?
How did you learn about the end of the war? How did you learn about it? When did you hear about it?
About what?
The end of the war.
Oh, the end of the war? That's near the end, though.
Well, we've been talking for about 20 minutes.
I thought you wanted. I thought you wanted. I thought you wanted me to tell you go through the whole thing.
Yeah, well, we've been talking a long
There's
time.
something, the light like dimmed,
Huh?
How long have we been talking?
at least 10 minutes.
And he's supposed to ask you questions.
I asked them 2 questions.
You ramble on, but he's supposed to ask you.
Yeah, I know, but I kept on talking.
Fill
So what
time.
questions did you want that I could answer for you?
I don't know, it doesn't matter. Leave, Joe.
Well,
Yes.
you could. There might be some questions. You take your time.
Oh,
I gotta do it over because I kept moving the camera.
you have enough, don't you?
Keep asking questions.
So what question maybe I can
Tape's
answer?
still
some of
running.
them.
You can edit.
Let's see. You're not taking anything now, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, you are taking anything?
Yeah. What do you remember about D-Day?
That's the D-Day, is the invasion of Normandy, okay? That's what we were preparing for. That's why we had soldiers come aboard and train how to come aboard and get off and how they were going. We practiced on beaches, English beaches, how they come off the ramps. In other words, on the side of our ship, on the side of our boat, and landing craft, they had 2 ramps that we would slide out, let out, and they would land, they would hit on the beach, and the soldiers would go off and on that ramp, and they go into the beach, on the beach. And so D-Day, June 6, 1944, we left during the night to cross the English Channel. We had to leave, and the soldiers were all on board then. I mean, they were all ready. They were all armed with their bayonets and guns and everything, whatever they had. And I think we had about 250 soldiers aboard on our thing, on our craft anyway, our LCI. There's other LCIs too. It was in that same flotilla as we went in. So the only thing is that we left during the night, so we crossed the English Channel and get there early in the morning, daybreak. You know what I mean? At daybreak, and we had a beach. It was rough. The English Channel is pretty rough. It's a rough channel. It's it's rough waters because it's between the ocean and there, and it's coming in. And the English Channel is known to be pretty rough seas. Well, we got across the English Channel. It was rough. And we landed right up on the beach. In other words, we go as far as the engines will make us go. We were propelled all the LCIs. I don't know how many LCIs. There might have been about I went on Omaha Beach. The beaches were named different. There was 3 beaches. I was on Omaha Beach. There was two other names. I can't recall their names right now. But Omaha Beach was the beach that we landed. Our boat landed, and let the soldiers off. So they let the soldiers out. They go down the ramp. We had about 250. Out of that 250, maybe 25 died. They sank because they had to go with their pack. They have their pack on their back of their, their all their armament and everything like that, and they were loaded. And some of those kids, they were young fellows, or they were soldiers, just like I was. And the water was deep, coming over above their waist. Some of them, they weren't too tall, the fellows, and like I said, they were pretty high on them. And then with the pack, kind of suck them down. Maybe, and a lot of them drowned. There was a lot of soldiers that drowned. The infantry soldiers drowned because of that. In other words, we could go only so high. It was about, like I said, it was about up to up around their waist, above their waist, up in their shoulders, under the armpit. And they had their packs, heavy packs, and they didn't expect it. The soldiers didn't expect it to be that rough, the water. And we saw them, they drowned, a lot of them drowned. Of course, I didn't see them because I was stationed in the emergency, being I was a machinist, I used to run the emergency steering in case anything happened. See, I was down in the emergency steering room. In case anything happened to the steering, like, because the Germans or whoever were on the beach would be firing if they fired, and we lost our steering, our handrail steering from the pilot house up at the top. Then I would have the emergency steering. I would have to handle emergency steering by down there with the machines, start the machines up, and then go. And luckily, we managed with the regular steering. We didn't have to go down using the emergency steering. So I didn't see the soldiers landing. I didn't visually see them because I wasn't on the top side. I was down below in the engine room, or the steering engine room, where they have all the gears. They have another big wheel down there that I could steer it manually if I had to steer it. I would have phones. I would put headset phones on and get command from the captain or whoever says, hard right or hard left or straight center, or whatever they tell you to. So that was the invasion of Normandy. Like I said, out of maybe the 250, I would say maybe 20, somebody was saying, some of the fellows were saying about 20 or 25 died. Those soldiers just sank. We weren't the only ship, there was other LCIs alongside of us, adjacent to us, and they were landing troops too. And then the troops didn't have too much trouble as far as fighting, the Germans, because for somehow or other, the beaches, they seemed to get on pretty good. They moved up ahead, they ran up ahead, and they went on, and we didn't have much trouble as far as, of course, you must remember, prior to us landing there, the Air Force were constantly bombing France, or where they were going to land, where they were supposed to land further back in the small towns. They were bombarding, and where they thought the Germans were fortified in the trenches or wherever they were. So there was constant bombing for about 2 or 3 months, going over from England, going over there at night, bombarding the beaches and everything else, so they wouldn't make sure that they knocked everybody out, or they wouldn't fortify themselves. But they did have, the Germans did put up blockades, like big lumber or targets of drop them in the water so you couldn't land on the beach. You know what I mean? In other words, they would keep, the ship would hit it and would break up the ship. There were some areas where they had big planks of wood, these big 12 by 4s, 12 by 12 wood. They'd be pounding in the sand so that the ships or anybody come aboard, come cruise there, would hit the bottom of the ship, would put a hole in. There's some areas, but the specific area they had, we didn't have too much. We saw them further down. We just like got in between, and we saw them different parts that they had. So like I said, we landed on the beach, we got those soldiers off. As soon as the soldiers were on, all we did, then the ship moved back. The ships moved back. The soldiers just moved ahead. They fired. They went out infantry. And then the LSTs, that's the landing ship's tanks. They were large or big boats. They also had a flat bottom, but they were big. They were large because they had a lot of tanks, army tanks. They had army jeeps and everything like that. Everything they could fire, they could do things. So they followed suit as soon as right after that. You know, of course they landed. They were further apart. We were separated. You know, there was like 20, 30 feet between each boat. So they landed everything. So and they landed and they seemed to move pretty far ahead. The soldiers. They were, from what I hear. I mean, I didn't see it. You know, you hear that because I'm down until I come up topside after they landed. Then we pulled back. All the ships that were empty, that had unloaded their either soldiers or their equipment, had to move back into the middle of the ocean, not the middle of the English Channel. And we anchored out there. We anchored out. We anchored so away from the beach, maybe 200 or 300 yards away from the beach. You know, off, so that other ships, if anything else, they'd come in. And I guess that was about the story. What else you wanted to hear about this?
Did you know it was going to be that important when?
Oh, at that time, I guess, no, not really. Not really. I mean, I didn't know how important. I mean, you were 20 years old, 21 years old. I mean, all you knew, you were told to do. I mean, important? I mean, I guess it was important because it was the invasion. I mean, there was 3 beaches. The Omaha Beach was one, there was another one. I can't recall the other 2 beaches. Because English troops went on one of the other beaches. I think they had other troops like from France that were over in England and that got over there and they went over. In other words, there was 3 beaches that they called them different names. The Americans mostly went on the Omaha Beach. Omaha Beach was the beach that we went on, that landed. But they were all right alongside each other, or right next to each other. So about 2 weeks after the invasion, we were out there. We were out there on a boats, staying out there. A big, gigantic storm came up. You know, the storm, rough sea, rough, and our boats were hitting each other. They were singing, and some of them were smashed up, and some of them landed. We were told right away to get up, get underway, and move out of there. You know, get underway, get started, and move out of there. Some of the boats couldn't make it. They were landing. They were thrown right on the beach from the storm. And this terrific storm, our type of boats, mostly the smaller boats, were landed. They were thrown on the beach, and they couldn't get out. You know, they were stuck there. They needed to go to land. Of course, they were safe because by that time, 2 weeks, the Americans had taken over most of pretty far away, so they weren't too bad outside, not getting hurt. So then we went back. They told us to go back to England, and we went back to England and start picking up supplies to take back over there, like food and everything. Yeah, in other words, they're going to use us to ferry us back and forth to move soldiers or move anything, food or anything. But what they decided while we were back, they decided that they were going to. They felt that there were going to be a lot of storms here. The English Channel is pretty rough. It's a rough channel. So what they did, they got a lot of these Liberty ships. You know, these big tanker ships that go across. They call them Liberty ships. At that time, they carry cargo from one place to from one country to another country. They're big cargo ships. And what they did, the Americans got a lot of old cargo ships, and English too, old cargo ships. What they did, they brought them up to the beach. They had them towed up to the beach, close to the beach as possible, not too much. What they were doing is a breakwater. In other words, a breakwater is like a wall, so that, and where any other ships, where all the small ships could go in without no trouble. In other words, it was a breakwater. It was just to break the water from going up against the beach. And they sank, these were old Liberty ships, old cargo ships. What they did, they sank them. They put holes in them, they sank it about, the beach was like this, you know, this is the beach from there, like you've got a line. And the ships were sank about maybe 100 feet or 100 yards away from the beach. So to make a breakwater, so it wouldn't be too rough there. And they just sank all these ships, these Liberty ships, or big tankers, big ships that were big and carried food and stuff like that. The old ones, not the new ones. Now, then when we got in, then when we used to move ships, we used to move food and soldiers. We moved back and forth across the channel when they needed more soldiers, you know, as they needed them. And we used to go down there and we'd go behind, you know, like there'd be openings in various places. There'd be openings for us to go through the breakwaters. I mean, you go in the breakwater and then we anchor where the breakwater was, and then they eventually built a little pier, a floating pier. They built from the beach to our ships, to a lot of those ships. But it was inside the breakwater where those tanks were all, they all went down. And what else? That's about it as far as the war itself. I mean, and then I stood there. We were there till June. In December, we were told we were going to get. From June, when the invasion, till December, we were going back and forth, taking supplies and soldiers on the beach. And in the latter part of September, we were told that, of 1942, that we were told that we were going to go back to America, the ones that were on the LCI, because they had enough food and stuff like that. The Army were, you know, transported. There was other ways of getting the Army. People were on tanks over. So, let's see, what I had to do. I had to come back the following year, in January of 1945. But we didn't go back on those LCI, those little ships. What we did, we left them there. We left them there to England or British or whoever took them, or maybe they probably didn't have no use after the war. They probably scrapped them or whatever they were. And we went back on a big transport. But back on that transport were a lot of sailors and from other ships, a lot of other ships, and also the wounded soldiers that couldn't go back to fight anymore. So there were soldiers, Army people, and sailors. So we came back. We went back home on a transport. And we got back in sometime in February. We got back early part of February on this big transport. So it was just so many people on board. You had 3 or 4 meals a day and all that stuff. And really what was I sent for? I was sent down, from there I was sent down to New Orleans to wait for another boat. To wait for another ship to go out to the Pacific. Because most of the Navy was done as far as, no, it wasn't mostly done, but our type of work was completed as far as bringing troops back and forth over there. Because after that, they had the big Air Force, big airplanes that carried soldiers and things like that. They were capable of doing that. They didn't need us at the beginning. They used us in the beginning part. So that's about. No, then I went down. Like I said, I went down. They sent us down to New Orleans, and we were wondering. And the war with Japan was still going on. And then they sent us down to New Orleans because I was supposed to wait. Me and a couple hundred other fellows were supposed to wait for a ship, ARL, an auxiliary repair. ARL landing, I guess. Auxiliary repairs, some kind of ship. Anyway, ARL 33. It was mostly a ship that did a lot of repairs for a lot of that would do a lot of repairs out in sea or near a port. You know what I mean? That was in Japan or something. We know we were going to go. Supposed to go to the Pacific, down the Pacific, to do this. And that's where we were supposed to do this I was a machinist, I learned, I was a machinist, so I was in the Navy Yard. So I was supposed to, we were stationed on this, we were gonna be stationed on this ARL 33 to do work there, so that when we went over with the Pacific, whatever island or wherever they stationed us, we would do a lot of repair work for the ships, other ships, like, a pump would break on another ship, and they needed something to be manufactured or had it made, or they needed some certain mechanics. They'd call us, or we'd be right, all the ships would be lined up to, at whatever base we were stationed at. Well, we were waiting for a ship. We waited there about 2, 3, 4 months. Then we heard about the atomic bomb. That happened, and the war was stopped. It was canceled. They were surrendered. That's it. We didn't have to go anywhere. We never got on the ship. We never got on the ship. The ship never came down to where we were, was being built, was done, but we never got to port while we were waiting for it. So then they sent us back to Norfolk to get discharged. Well, this was after we were there quite a few months, 6, 7 months down the road. Then they sent us back up to Norfolk. Some of us, everybody could go wherever closest to your home. So they sent me back to Norfolk, and a lot of us did. That's still on? So I went back to Norfolk, and I waited for my discharge from the Navy. And I got discharged January of 1946. Is there any other questions you want?
That's all.
You sure?
Yeah.
Does that answer all the questions?
Yeah. Now you gotta just shut
That was pretty long, wasn't it?
Very long.
Ready to get started.
Do you have any questions,
Yeah,
David?
I'm alright.
Do you have any questions?
Well, we have to wait for him to start.
Wait a minute.
Introduce them again.
Yeah, introduce it again. We're gonna start all over again. Hold on a minute.
Do you have any questions?
1,
Dad, don't look at me, okay? Look at these guys.
2,
Don't
Look
talk
at
to
these.
3.
This is my grandfather, Candler Petrone.
How do you do? They call me Candy.
How we could have done that.
When
Do
did
you have any questions?
when did you first enter the military?
What was that? Military. In June of 1942,
What branch of service were you in?
U.S. Navy.
And did you volunteer or were you drafted?
I was drafted, but then they told me I didn't have to go in because I supported my mother. My father died when I was young, when I was 18. And I was 20 at that time, and I was working down at the naval shipyard. And they let me go for about a year, and then they asked me, they kept, every 7 or 8 months they'd send me a questionnaire whether I would like to go back, when to go into service. And I finally went in June. I told me I'd go, but I wanted to select, I didn't want to go into the Army, I wanted to go into the Navy, and they said, it's okay, so that's what I got. I got called, I went into the Navy, U.S. Navy.
What kind of training did you have?
Well, it was just regular boot camp, calisthenics, see that you're physically fit, and know how to use a gun if you had to use a gun, your firing practice, things of that sort. How to use a rifle, how to load it, and things like that. That's about all. But we didn't have to carry guns. We never carried guns. But anyway, they wanted you to learn those things, and mostly calisthenics and jumping over exercise, jumping over fences and climbing rope and things of that sort. So physically fit. That's about it.
What were the uniforms like? You had uniform?
This is your regular dress uniform, they call. Well, this is your dress uniform, the one in blue. Okay? As you can see, this is an emblem here. Is machinist mate second class. Machinist mate. I worked on machinery, manufacturing or fixing or repairing things or something of that sort. This is your dress uniform. You had to wear this whenever you left, when you went out, off the ship, whenever you were off the ship. And you wore this hat here. This is a U.S. Navy hat. I don't know if it'll fit me with my big head today. Yeah, it's about fit me. That's about fit me. That's Navy fit. Okay.
What do you remember about D-Day?
D-Day, I was in it. That's what I remember. I was in the invasion of Normandy, Normandy Beach.
What'd you do?
What we
What
did,
was your job?
I was on a Navy ship called the Landing Craft Infantry, LCIL, large meant we carried a lot of troops, large troops, you know, large, big, but 250, I think 250, close to 300 troops we carried aboard. Only from the English beach, from Falmouth, England, where we had our port, our home port was Falmouth, England, to go across the English Channel. That's where we carried the troops, just from there to there. From Falmouth, England to the English Channel on Omaha Beach.
Did you think that D-Day was going to be that important?
D-Day.
Yeah, do you think it was going to be that important?
Well, we figured it was going to be important because it was, we do or die. We had to do it. I mean, that way. But I mean, I didn't expect it to be, but later years, you know, like now, you know, that it was that important. But yeah, it was supposed to be an important thing. We were invading over there, France, where a lot of Germans supposed to have settled and armored themselves. So that's about it.
Didn't you have something to do with the South Pacific? Weren't you stationed to go to the South Pacific?
No, I never went to, I got as far as New Orleans. After I came back from the invasion of Normandy, after a year out there, we were there about a year, close to a year. And then I went down to New Orleans to pick up a ship. The ARL, Auxiliary Repair Landing Ship, something like that. ARL 33 was a repair ship. All they did was go out to whatever port they were in the foreign country, and they repair the ships or fabricate or make machinery or whatever they had to do to keep the ships in top shape. You know what I mean? That's about it.
What was it like after the war was over? What was it like at home when the war was over?
Well, all I wanted to do was get home, get the hell out. No, it was all right, but you're anxious to get home. You know, you're just restless after it was over. I mean, then when we heard that the war was ended because Japan gave up, or because of the atomic bomb, then most of the crew they wanted to get out. So we waited till they shipped us back to Norfolk. You know, Navy.
What did you do after the war was over?
I went back to work because I was the only provider. I was the only one who worked in the house, and I had a younger brother and a younger sister, but so I had to go back to work down at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. I was a machinist there at that time.
Well, thanks for coming and
Is
interviewing.
that all?
You can stop.
You're quite welcome.